They said the war was already lost. From the shattered observation deck of the Mistral, Earth hung suspended in space like a wounded animal, bleeding blue and black. Wildfires raged in the Amazon, churning pillars of smoke into orbit. Oceans churned with chemical bloom. The once proud cities, Cairo, Tokyo, Johannesburg, burned like forgotten candles, flickering out one by one. Commander Elias Rourke stood silently, watching the end of everything. "We're getting out," said Lieutenant Haresh, barely audible under the hiss of failing oxygen regulators. "Council ships are pulling back from the Sol perimeter. They're abandoning Earth." Rourke didn't respond. His fists clenched behind his back. Outside the hull glass, Scourge ships moved in ominous silence, obsidian crescents crawling like ticks around the dying planet. No engines flared, no weapons were visible, and yet, every human installation they passed, every station, every outpost, every bunker, simply ceased to exist. No screams, no flames, just gone. That was the Scourge's way. "They'll glass the whole surface," Haresh said. "Same as they did to Varela 9. Same as Karak Dusk." "Earth isn't Karak Dusk." Rourke finally turned. "Earth is home." Haresh didn't reply. What could she say? The Council had already made its decision. 3 days ago, the Galactic Council declared Earth a Category 0 conflict zone, a bureaucratic euphemism for abandon all hope. The decision came after the Scourge burned through Mars's military complex in under 11 hours, and Luna's shield arrays collapsed like wet paper. No reinforcements would be sent. No evacuation fleets would be organized. Humanity had been officially written off. Collateral damage in the Council's appeasement pact. Rourke had once believed the Council stood for peace, for unity, for progress. Now he saw them for what they truly were: cowards. Ground side, Earth's surface, 22 kilometers west of New Moscow ruins. 6-year-old Ava crouched in a drainage tunnel as the world collapsed above her. The ground shook with every Scourge impact, vibrations like the heartbeat of some ancient god stomping through the crust. She clutched her baby brother tight, trying to muffle his cries as dust rained down from the tunnel ceiling. Mom had said to run, run, and don't stop. Get to the red door. The vault would be there. Ava hadn't seen Mom since the sky turned white and the screaming began. Behind her, in the tunnels, other survivors moved in desperate silence. Old men with missing limbs, nurses dragging bleeding children, soldiers too wounded to stand, crawling with bloodied fingers. They had no plan, just a direction. Down. The Scourge didn't follow them underground. Not yet. Ava didn't know why. She didn't care. The red door was just ahead. They made it. She banged on the rusted panel like her mother told her. 3 quick, 2 slow. Then silence. Her heart hammered. Her brother whimpered. Then it opened. Cold blue light spilled out. The door hissed, gears shrieking. A mechanical voice said something in a language Ava didn't know. Then the survivors rushed forward, stumbling into the unknown. Behind them, the Earth screamed. Council chamber, Galactic core. "I will not risk the lives of trillions to save one dying world." Counselor Threx of the Varelian Spires slammed his neural tendrils against the debating pillar, broadcasting his fury across the chamber floor. The hall rippled with empathic dissonance, whispers of fear, sorrow, shame, and cold logic. Humanity was warned, repeatedly. You invited them into the Council, shared your sciences, your strategies. And what did they do? Aggression, colonization, defiance. Another voice, soft and precise, cut in from the shadows. And what do we call abandoning one's own ally to extinction? The voice belonged to Counselor Valian Sarevan, an unusually sympathetic Varelian. Threx sneered. "We call it survival." The chamber voted. Humanity, excommunicated. Earth, abandoned. The Council fleet pulled back from the Sol system within 20 standard hours. Warships sipped away like frightened insects, their trails vanishing into the abyss. Only a few captains disobeyed orders. Most didn't look back. The Scourge moved in with surgical inevitability. Deep underground, Site Delta 7. Dr. Lyra Miles stared at the holographic display with hollow eyes. The Scourge weren't using traditional weapons. No fire, no plasma, no kinetic strikes. Instead, whole cities were simply deconstructed. Localized matter disintegration fields, she whispered, horrified. They're not bombing us. They're harvesting us. Technician Johar beside her swallowed hard. Why would they? Silicon doesn't evolve like carbon, Lyra said. They don't destroy us because they hate us. They destroy us because we're useful. Raw material, organic templates, neural complexity. The implications hit them both at once. The scourge were learning, adapting. This wasn't extermination. It was assimilation. She looked around at the bunker. Dozens of children, cryogenic pods, AI servers, genetic banks, emergency food supplies. Her life's work. Lyra turned to her assistant. Seal the vault. Set the AI protocols to long-term development. No external transmissions. You mean we're not winning this war? She said quietly. But someone else might. Someday. They closed the vault doors. Above them, the world burned. 17 hours later, the last broadcast. On a crumbling orbital relay, an old AI reactivated for one last task. It sent a burst transmission on all council and military bands. A desperate message from Earth's last defense node. This is Commander Elias Rourke of the Human Defense Accord. Earth has fallen. Civilian casualties exceed 94%. Remaining resistance has gone dark or underground. Council forces have withdrawn. We are alone. But hear this. We are not done. If you can hear this, know that humanity is not extinct. We will endure. We will adapt. We will remember. And someday, we will return. Then silence. Forever, it seemed. The scourge circled Earth like carrion birds, blanketing the skies with dark clouds of self-replicating matter. The sun grew dim. Orbiting satellites crumbled. Space itself around Earth went quiet. The blue planet, once bursting with noise and life, was declared dead, and the galaxy moved on. But underground, humanity simmered. Not gone, just waiting. Year 2879, Earth's subterranean depths. Vault Complex Echo. 9. Depth. 3.7 kilometers beneath Old Quebec. Dust curled in silent spirals through the air as System Core 3 roared back to life. Monitors blinked. Data rails whirred to speed. Blue-tinted emergency lights flickered like the heartbeat of a long-dormant colossus. For the first time in over 2 centuries, Vault Echo 9 spoke to the surface. General Era Quinn stood silently before the main console, her arms crossed tight, gaze fixed on the ancient machinery like it might lunge at her. Her face was pale beneath the dirt and scarring, her uniform patched and repatched over generations. The only thing newer than the command collar she wore was the fire in her eyes. She spoke a single word. Transmit. Behind her, Commander Deke Graven, scarred, gruff, and cybernetically enhanced from spine to sternum, flipped the ignition switch on the Solaris uplink. Static filled the vault like a scream clawing its way from a forgotten grave. A synthesized female voice, calm, clear, ancient, came online. Warning. Broadcast frequency 0.49 Council is restricted. Proceeding will violate Galactic Communication Accords. Era smiled grimly. We're already dead. Let's make it official. The static settled. Then a pulse shot skyward, straight through 3 kilometers of solid Earth, past layers of dead satellites, decaying orbital junk, and ancient weapons platforms, until it struck a half-intact relay station orbiting in the ghost path of Luna. The relay flickered, shook, and obeyed. For the first time in 200 years, Earth spoke. The message, this is Ember Chain Command, transmitting from Earth. Repeat. Earth is not uninhabited. Earth is not lost. We are the descendants of the ones you left behind, the children of fire. We have endured. To the Galactic Council, we remember your vote. We remember your silence. You left us to burn. To the scourge, we survived. We adapted, and we will reclaim what is ours. We are the last humans born beneath a stolen sky, and we are coming back. Galactic Core Council Communications Nexus. 7.4 hours later, the message shattered protocols across 5 sectors. Emergency alerts triggered in Varelian command nexuses. The Council's Deep Archive linguistics teams, long retired from human translation work, were yanked from cryostasis. Panic swept through diplomatic circles like wildfire on dry silicon. It shouldn't be possible. Earth had been designated inert, a biological grave. No known transmissions had come from the system in 200 years. Orbital scans showed nothing but atmospheric decay and radiation storms. And yet, they're alive. Counselor Sarevan whispered, watching the playback again. The message was raw, furious, alive with emotion. An emotion most council species had long bred out of themselves. The Varelians especially, serene and logical, recoiled from its tone. But Serevan felt something else, guilt. Long ago, he had voted against reinforcing Earth. It had been the pragmatic choice. He remembered the way the human ambassador begged, her voice cracking as she screamed that Earth was not a resource, it was home. They hadn't listened. Now the consequences were boiling out of the abyss. This is a false signal, Counselor Threx insisted, scuttling along the upper wall of the chamber. His chitin clicked with irritation. Some trick. Pirates, perhaps. A mimic AI. The signature came from Earth, Serevan said, voice quiet but firm. And what do you propose we do? Threx hissed. Negotiate with ghosts. Serevan didn't answer. Instead, he stared at the last frame of the broadcast. A human woman in a dark metal vault, flanked by war-battered soldiers, eyes filled with the promise of war. He tapped the side of his cranial implant. Dispatch a diplomatic vessel. No weapons. No escorts. Threx screeched in disbelief. You're mad. They're feral now. Serevan stood. Then perhaps it's time the Council answered for its sins. Earth orbit. Relay Station Theta 12. 3 days later, the Scourge arrived in silence. 7 crescent-shaped cruisers shimmered into existence above Earth, slipping through phase space like sharks into bloodied water. Their outer hulls rippled with strange geometries, non-Euclidean in shape, impossible to track with conventional sensors. One of them pulsed, and the orbital relay that rebroadcast Ember Chain's message disintegrated mid-signal, atomized in a brief burst of shimmering blue flame. Then the Scourge waited. They always did. Patience wasn't a virtue for them. It was strategy. Underground, Ember Chain Command. Deep her sector. General Quinn stood over a holographic map of Earth's crust, where flashing red nodes indicated Scourge movement in orbit. Their reaction had been faster than expected. They heard us, Deke muttered, knuckles white on the rail. God help us. They heard us. We wanted them to hear us, Quinn replied. Her eyes were steady. We needed to confirm they were still watching, still listening. Commander Idris Vance, their resident technopath, leaned over his console. Relay Theta is gone. We got about 67% of the message off-world before the cutoff. Multiple council pathways registered the signal. At least 5 major nodes pinged back. So we were heard by the enemy and the ones who betrayed us, Deke said. Perfect. Good, Quinn said. Now they both know we're not extinct. She tapped the console. A new schematic appeared. Operation Thorn. A plan 2 generations in the making. It was bold, dangerous, and in all likelihood, suicidal. But it might give them a chance. The plan? Seize a council diplomatic vessel, hijack its core AI, and use its authority codes to unlock orbital weapons platforms left in Earth's graveyard belt. We'll light up the sky again, she said. And this time, no one puts us out. En route to Earth, Council diplomatic vessel Serenity's path. Counselor Serevan sat alone in the observation dome as the ship coasted toward the solar system. Stars flickered past like whispers of old truths. He reviewed the message for the 50th time, listening not to the words, but to the voice. That voice held conviction, a sense of purpose the council had forgotten. It disturbed him and intrigued him. His adjutant, a slender four-armed lechery named Zeno VH, approached nervously. Sir, are you certain this is wise? No weapons, no fleet escort. What if they retaliate? Serevan gave a thin smile. Then perhaps we deserve it. He turned to the viewport as Earth came into view. It was no longer the blue jewel of ancient memory. It was bruised, scarred, haloed by broken satellites and drifting debris fields. But something burned in its heart, a flickering light on the night side, a signal flare of defiance. A warning to the galaxy. Galactic Core, Council Chambers. 7 standard hours after receiving the last signal. The vaulted chamber of the Galactic Council was a cavernous dome of shifting light and shadows. Bioluminescent crystalline spires hummed softly, reflecting hues of pale violet and emerald as the delegates assembled for an emergency session. The air was thick with tension, an atmosphere so palpable that even the normally impassive Varelians shifted uneasily in their seats. Counselor Valian Serevan, the Varelian who had advocated for humanity's cause, stood quietly near the chamber's edge, watching the myriad species debate in fractal tongues and layered holograms. The recent broadcast from Earth had shattered decades of complacency and political certainty. For centuries, Earth had been dismissed as a lost cause, an obsolete system abandoned to rot. Now, humanity's unexpected return had forced the Council into crisis. The opening salvo, Counselor Threx, towering and insectoid, the staunchest opponent of Earth's rescue, spoke first. His voice was a harsh rasp, amplified by his mandibles clicking in irritation. The signal is a provocation, a bluff by desperate survivors. They have no fleet, no allies. Their planet is a ruin. We cannot afford to waste resources on a lost cause. Across from him, Counselor Mlaw the Othran, a species known for their empathy and longevity, shook her multifaceted head. Desperation does not explain the sophistication of the transmission. The Council's sensors confirmed orbital weapons platforms activating. This is not a ragtag insurgency, it is a deliberate resurgence. Even so, Threx countered, the risk is unacceptable. Engaging them invites war. The Scourge will capitalize on any weakness. It is better to contain and monitor from afar. Serevan's appeal. Serevan stepped forward, his calm but firm voice slicing through the din. Containment is no longer an option. The message came from within Earth's crust, not from orbit or a hidden fleet, but from those who survived underground. Their technological level is advanced enough to threaten regional stability. Worse, they have the will to fight. He scanned the chamber, meeting eyes, tentacles, mandibles, or otherwise. The Council must face its moral obligation. We abandoned Earth and its people. That was a mistake. They demand our attention, not our judgment. Our refusal to act has sown the seeds of chaos. Counselor Yari of the Quolari, a cold, amphibious species, sneered. Your sentimentality blinds you, Serevan. The Council's decision was pragmatic. We cannot risk reigniting the flames of a war we barely survived. Serevan's eyes flickered with resolve. If we do nothing, humanity will take what they need, by force, if necessary. The Scourge's silence indicates they are wary. The humans have something we do not understand. Ignoring their resurgence will only delay the inevitable. Behind the scenes, the Council's fracture. Outside the public chamber, behind thick soundproof panels, a smaller council convened in secret. Here, pragmatic leaders debated in hushed tones. High Chancellor Rylix of the Varelian hegemony paced the room. This is not a question of morals, he said sharply. It is a question of survival. If humanity regains orbital control, they could activate the ancient weapons left dormant in Earth's graveyard belt. Those weapons could threaten the balance of power in the Soul Sector, and by extension, the Council. Ambassador Jigthar of the Daresh sect, a reptilian mercenary faction, leaned back with a cynical grin. Why don't we use the Scourge as our hammer? Let them finish what they started. Our fleets will mop up the pieces. Simple. Rylix shook his head. The Scourge are not tools to be wielded. They have agendas of their own. Unpredictable. Evolving. If humanity is becoming a threat, even to the Scourge, we must act carefully. The Council's decision. Back in the main chamber, the vote was called. Proposal 438. To authorize limited intervention in the Sol system to assess the threat posed by re-emergent human forces, with an option to enforce containment protocols if necessary. Votes flickered across the holographic tally. For, 52%. Against, 47%. Abstain, 1%. The proposal passed by the narrowest margin. Serevan exhaled slowly. The Council would send a reconnaissance fleet to Earth, but with strict orders to avoid open conflict unless provoked. The diplomatic vessel Serenity's Path would lead the mission, with Serevan aboard as a goodwill envoy. On board Serenity's Path, approaching Sol, Counselor Serevan stood on the observation deck, staring at the battered blue-green planet below. The scars of centuries-long conflict were obvious: patches of dead ocean, scorched deserts, massive craters from orbital strikes. His mind raced with questions. What was humanity capable of now? How had they survived so long underground? What weapons or technology had they salvaged or developed? And, most important of all, what did they want? He was determined to find out. Beside him, Xeno VH, his four-armed Lekari adjutant, was monitoring incoming data streams. Sir, sensors detect unusual energy signatures near the planet's core. The so-called Ember Chain Command is more active than expected. Saravan nodded. Prepare for diplomatic protocols. And for the worst, Ember Chain Command, Earth Underground. General Era Quinn stood before her war council, the tension palpable in the underground bunker. The council has decided to send a ship, she said. We knew this day would come, Commander Graven replied. They come with their rules, their demands. But they do not know what humanity has become. We're not asking for their mercy, Quinn said firmly. We're demanding recognition. We survived their abandonment. We will survive the scourge. And if the council tries to stop us, we will burn brighter than ever. Her eyes swept the room, landing on each soldier. Prepare the defenses. The fight is just beginning. The calm before the storm. As the Serenity's path slowed into orbit, a strange stillness settled over Earth's skies. Orbital weapon platforms blinked on an ancient silence, the dormant might of a forgotten era rekindled. Far underground, humanity waited, patient, fierce, and unyielding. The council watched with bated breath, and the galaxy held its breath as the next chapter of humanity's story was about to unfold. Ember Chain Command, deep under Earth. Hours before the Council's diplomatic vessel arrives, General Era Quinn stood in the center of the command room, surrounded by flickering holographic displays that cast eerie shadows on the steel walls. The underground facility was alive with movement. Soldiers and technicians rushed back and forth, their faces grim, their every action purposeful. The room hummed with energy as multiple data streams converged on a single goal, Operation Thorn. It was a plan forged in desperation, years in the making, a gamble that could either ignite humanity's return to the stars or bury them forever beneath the ruins of a forgotten world. The plan, Operation Thorn, was audacious. The Council's diplomatic vessel, Serenity's Path, was en route to Earth, carrying Counselor Valian Serevan and a small delegation. It was lightly armed, a symbol of diplomacy rather than war. Humanity's only chance to regain leverage lay in capturing that ship, not through open battle, but through stealth, subterfuge, and hacking. Using a combination of cyber warfare, guerrilla tactics, and commandeered council technology, Ember Chain Command planned to seize control of Serenity's Path, hijack its core AI, and use its authority codes to activate the orbital weapons platforms left in Earth's graveyard belt. The Graveyard Belt. The Graveyard Belt was a ring of decommissioned war machines, forgotten satellites, and derelict weapon platforms encircling Earth's orbit. These relics of humanity's long-lost golden age were powerful, but dormant. If reactivated, they could control access to the skies and even target hostile fleets. For decades, the Council had prohibited Earth from touching these weapons, fearing the resurgence of human power. But now, with the Council sending envoys and their scourge enemies lurking in orbit, those fears were no longer theoretical. The team, Era, turned to face her team. Commander Graven, you'll lead the boarding party, she said, pointing to the scarred veteran. Tech Specialist Idris Vance, you're in charge of hacking and electronic warfare. We'll need every advantage we can get. Idris nodded, fingers already dancing across his portable console. The ship's defenses are old but robust. We'll have to breach their firewall and override their command protocols without triggering self-destruct. Quinn met the gaze of her officers, eyes burning with conviction. This mission will mark the first step in humanity's fight for survival. We cannot fail. Preparing the strike. Deep in the tunnels beneath the ruins of old Quebec, Ember Chain operatives moved like shadows. Clad in advanced stealth armor, they navigated the labyrinthine subway tunnels that led to an underground launch silo. The objective was a small stealth shuttle, long hidden from orbital scans and weapon sensors, designed precisely for covert operations like this. Inside the shuttle, Idris connected a data spike to the main console, running last-minute diagnostics. All systems nominal. Stealth field operational. Communications jammers are active. Graven checked his weaponry. Compact plasma rifles, and electromagnetic pulse grenades. Let's bring the fight to them. Launch and approach. The shuttle burst through the surface in a plume of dust, and debris, slipping past the scattered Scourge patrols with its stealth cloaking active. Above, Serenity's path drifted silently, unaware of the storm approaching. Idris worked furiously, hacking into the ship's external sensor grid, creating false signatures and blinding cameras. "Their awareness is limited," he reported. "We've got a small window to board undetected." Graven nodded. "Time to dance." The shuttle latched onto the diplomatic vessel's hull with magnetic clamps. The airlock hissed open. Graven and his team slipped inside like ghosts. Inside, the ship was pristine, an elegant blend of Council technology and human touches left behind centuries ago. The walls glowed softly with ambient light, and holographic consoles lined the corridors. But silence hung heavy, unnatural for a vessel that should have been bustling with activity. Idris tapped into the ship's AI core through a secure terminal. Core AI is awake, but in low power standby. No crew detected in main sectors. Where is everyone? Graven wondered aloud. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed. The ship's AI announced calmly, "Unauthorized boarding detected." Initiating lockdown protocols. The fight for control. The boarding team hustled through locked doors and security checkpoints, engaging automated defense drones as they went. Idris bypassed firewalls, overriding door controls and disabling security systems. "Almost there. Give me 2 more minutes." They reached the bridge, where the core AI terminal awaited. Graven covered Idris as he inserted a data spike. The AI flickered, its synthetic voice chilling. "Identity confirmed. Council vessel Serenity's path. Unauthorized access detected. Initiating countermeasures." Idris worked faster. Core override in progress. 70%. 90%. A pulse of energy surged through the ship as control shifted to Ember Chain Command. Victory and consequences. The red alarm ceased. Lights stabilized. Graven exhaled, gripping his rifle tightly. "We have control." Idris smiled grimly. "Now, we use their codes to awaken Earth's graveyard weapons." Back on Earth, in command centers worldwide, the orbital platforms hummed and blinked as activation signals reached them. The sky's silent guardians were stirring. Aftermath. On the diplomatic vessel, Counselor Serevan and his delegation were confined to secure quarters, stunned by the sudden takeover. Serevan's face was unreadable, but inside, a tempest brewed. Humanity was no longer a ghost. They had made their move, and the Council's delicate balance was shattered. The new war. Back in the underground bunkers, General Quinn stared at the holographic stars above. "Operation Thorn succeeded," she said quietly. "The galaxy will know Earth is no longer a relic." Commander Graven nodded. "But now, the real fight begins." She smiled, fierce and resolute. "Then let's light up the sky." Earth, Ember Chain Command Headquarters. Following the seizure of Serenity's path, the glow of activation signals sent ripples through Earth's graveyard belt. The ancient orbital weapons platforms, long silent monuments of a forgotten war, stirred to life. Their powerful systems hummed in synchronized unison, casting a pale light over the planet below. Deep underground, the command center was alive with the crackle of chatter, strategic updates, and rapid data exchanges. Yet amid the surge of triumph and newfound power, a deeper tension rippled through the ranks, something unspoken but felt by all. General Era Quinn sat before the vast digital map of the Sol system, the glowing nodes and vectors reflecting in her eyes. Despite the success of Operation Thorn, she was haunted by questions not only about the future but the past, the very history of humanity's rise and fall. Revisiting the old records. "I want full access to the Council archives," Quinn demanded, her voice cutting through the room. "We need to understand everything, why Earth was abandoned, what the Council truly feared, and what secrets we might have missed." Idris Vance, the cyber specialist, nodded, fingers flying across his portable console. "Already on it, General. We've decrypted some fragments of the Council's classified files. They're encrypted, but I'm breaking through their firewalls." On the holo display, old images flickered to life, star maps, war logs, and, most chillingly, records of the Great Betrayal, a term long whispered in human legend but rarely confirmed. The Great Betrayal. Centuries ago, humanity had been a beacon in the galaxy, a rising power with advanced technology, a thriving culture, and strategic alliances. But during the peak of their expansion, the Council grew wary. Fearful of humanity's rapid growth and potential to disrupt the galactic balance, the Council covertly sanctioned the Scourge, a brutal alien force, to decimate Earth and its colonies. It was a calculated sacrifice, an attempt to curb human influence before it threatened the established order. The betrayal was total and absolute. Earth was bombarded, crippled, and left isolated. Communications were severed. Relief and aid were withheld. Humanity was written off as a failed experiment. But as the data showed, many had survived underground, nursing the embers of hope and preparing for the day they would rise again. The emotional toll. Quinn closed her eyes, the weight of history pressing down on her. How could they do this? She murmured. Turn their backs on their own? On us. Graven, standing nearby, placed a steady hand on her shoulder. They feared us because we refused to be controlled, because we dared to fight for our place. The room was silent, each officer grappling with the knowledge that their fight was not only against external enemies, but the betrayal of supposed allies, preparing for diplomatic fallout. Meanwhile, aboard the commandeered Serenity's path, Counselor Valian Serevan gathered his scattered delegation. Though the Council's envoy was under human control, Serevan retained his composure. We underestimated their resolve, he admitted. They are no longer the broken remnants we once dismissed. The diplomatic team debated their next steps, whether to attempt negotiation, call for reinforcements, or consider more aggressive measures. Serevan, however, had a different idea. We must appeal to their history and honor, he said softly. The betrayal haunts them. If we acknowledge our mistakes, perhaps we can forge a new path. But his colleagues were skeptical. Would they trust us after centuries of abandonment? One asked. Serevan's eyes darkened. Trust must be earned. The Scourge watches. Far above Earth, hidden among asteroid clusters, the Scourge fleet lay in wait. Their monstrous vessels were scarred from past battles, yet their resolve was unwavering. Their commanders monitored the activation of Earth's graveyard belt with interest and growing concern. The humans awaken, growled one, a towering Scourge warlord. They possess relics that could turn the tide. The Council's gamble may have backfired. Orders were dispatched to Titan patrols to prepare for an imminent confrontation. The war in Sol was far from over. Humanity's resolve. Back on Earth, General Quinn stood before her assembled forces. The Council tried to bury us, to erase our existence, she declared. But we endured. We survived. Now we take back our sky. Her words ignited a fire in the hearts of her soldiers, a reminder that their fight was about justice, survival, and reclamation. Idris, watching from the tech station, shared a quiet smile with Graven. We're not just fighting for Earth anymore, he said. We're fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. Shadows in the dark. But amid the rallying cries, shadows lurked within Ember Chain Command. Not all agreed with Quinn's vision. Some saw the new power as a tool for vengeance. Others feared the consequences of waking the Council's wrath. Whispers of dissent grew in the underground tunnels. Idris overheard fragments of a plot. Some within the ranks believed in striking preemptively against the Council and even the Scourge, risking total war to secure humanity's dominance. The future was uncertain. A flicker of hope. In a quiet moment, Quinn received a transmission from an unexpected source. It was a lone voice from within the Council, a dissident, someone who believed humanity deserved a second chance. General Quinn, the message began, there are those among us who see the betrayal for what it truly is. If you're willing, we can open a channel for dialogue. But beware, there are many who would see this alliance crushed before it begins. Quinn's eyes narrowed. This war is bigger than we imagined, she thought. But so is the hope. Earth, Ember Chain Command Headquarters. Days after the activation of the Graveyard Belt, the underground command room was quiet for once. The usual hum of machines and chatter had been replaced by an almost reverent silence. General Era Quinn sat alone, eyes fixed on the flickering communications console before her. The unexpected message from the Council dissident had shifted the entire strategic landscape. For the first time in decades, a genuine opportunity for dialogue flickered within the darkness of war. Her mind raced, trying to weigh the risks and benefits. Was this a trap? A clever ruse designed to lure humanity into a vulnerable position? Or was it truly a sign that even the Council itself harbored internal dissent? A faction willing to acknowledge the centuries-old betrayal and seek reconciliation? The dissident's message. Idris Vance entered the room quietly, carrying his portable console. "I decrypted the rest of the transmission," he said, setting it down next to Quinn. The dissident calls herself Lyra Vin. She claims to be a former high-ranking council advisor with ties to a secret faction. She says the council is deeply divided over how to handle humanity's resurgence. Quinn read the text carefully. "General Quinn, I am Lyra Vin. I represent those who believe humanity deserves a second chance, not as enemies but as partners. The council's old order is crumbling, and the Scourge threat forces us all to reconsider alliances. But be warned, many in the Council see your return as a threat that must be extinguished. If you wish to engage, meet me at coordinates I will send you. We must act in secret." Quinn looked up. A secret meeting. Dangerous, but necessary. Preparing for contact. The news spread quickly through Ember Chain Command. Opinions were split. Some officers saw this as a moment to end the endless cycle of betrayal and bloodshed. Others were suspicious, worried about walking into a trap. Commander Graven was skeptical. "The Council abandoned us once. What's to say they won't do it again?" Idris chimed in. "But if the Council is fractured, there's a chance to exploit those divisions. It's a risk, but it might save us from a war we can't win alone." Quinn stood firm. "We'll send a small envoy. This isn't about trusting the Council blindly. It's about finding any edge we can." She appointed a team to prepare a covert shuttle, outfitted with stealth technology and diplomatic protocols. Idris was tasked with securing all communications and encryption. The journey to the rendezvous. Days later, under the cover of darkness, the small shuttle lifted off from Earth's underground silo. The stars stretched endlessly ahead as it slipped past orbital defenses and out into deep space. The coordinates led to a remote asteroid outpost near the edge of the Council's territory, a neutral zone rumored to be used for secret meetings and negotiations. The shuttle's sensors scanned for signs of ambush or deception but found none. The tension inside was palpable. First contact. The shuttle docked at a small, unassuming station carved into the rock of the asteroid. Inside, the team moved cautiously, weapons holstered but ready. The station was dimly lit and sparsely staffed. The air smelled faintly of recycled metal and ozone. A woman stepped forward from the shadows, tall, poised, with sharp eyes that seemed to hold the weight of countless secrets. "I am Lyra Vin," she introduced herself calmly. "Thank you for coming." Quinn stepped forward, her gaze steady. "We want answers, and a way forward." The Council's divide. Lyra led them to a secure conference room and began her explanation. "The Council, you know, is a facade. Beneath it lies a fractured leadership. Some factions want to continue the old order, domination, control, suppression of humanity. Others believe the future depends on cooperation and mutual survival." She revealed evidence of covert operations within the Council aimed at destabilizing human efforts to reclaim Earth. "Your resurgence threatens the power structures that have ruled the galaxy for centuries. But the Scourge forces us to reconsider old rivalries. We cannot fight them alone." An uneasy alliance. Lyra proposed a fragile alliance, a coalition of Council factions willing to support humanity's defense against the Scourge in exchange for integration into the galactic community on equal terms. Quinn listened intently, weighing the offer. "This alliance could save millions of lives," Lyra said, "but it must remain secret. The Council's hardliners would destroy this chance if they knew." Quinn agreed, understanding the stakes. The price of trust. As the meeting concluded, Lyra issued a warning. "You must be prepared for sabotage from within your own ranks and from the Council. Trust will be your most valuable and most dangerous commodity." Quinn nodded, resolve hardening. "We will do whatever it takes to secure humanity's future." Return to Earth. The shuttle returned to Earth with cautious optimism. The news of the secret meeting was kept classified, limited to the highest ranks. Inside Ember Chain Command, the seeds of a new strategy were planted. Era Quinn and her team began laying groundwork for diplomatic channels and covert operations designed to strengthen the alliance while rooting out internal threats. Meanwhile, in the shadows, unbeknownst to Quinn, whispers of the secret meeting reached ears far beyond the underground bunkers. The Council's hardliners, furious and fearful, began mobilizing their own agents and fleets. Across the void, the Scourge prepared to exploit the brewing conflict, ready to strike where the galaxy's defenses were weakest. Humanity's crossroads. Back on Earth, Quinn stood once again before the star map, this time not just as a warrior, but as a reluctant diplomat. The path ahead is treacherous, she thought, but if we fail to walk it, there may be no future at all. The stars above glimmered cold and distant, but humanity's light, fierce and unyielding, had begun to pierce the darkness. Ember Chain Command Headquarters, Earth. The mood in Ember Chain Command shifted from cautious optimism to tense alert as intelligence reports poured in with alarming speed. The secret negotiations with Lyra Vin's faction of the Council had been leaked. Whether by betrayal within the command or an unseen Council spy, the hardliners were aware and furious. General Era Quinn stood before the tactical map, watching as red markers flickered rapidly across the Sol system. Fleet movements, orbital deployments, and mobilizations showed a grim truth. The Council's wrath was descending upon humanity with the full force of a vengeful empire. The Council's ultimatum. Moments later, the main communications console buzzed to life. The face of Counselor Threx, one of the fiercest hardliners, appeared in cold, shimmering hollow projection. General Quinn. Threx's voice cut through the room like a blade. Your attempts at secret alliances and diplomacy are futile. Humanity is a threat that must be extinguished. Withdraw your forces and surrender the Serenity's path, or face total annihilation. Quinn's jaw tightened. The arrogance and contempt radiating from the projection underscored everything humanity had suffered. We fight for our survival, she replied steadily. We will not bow to tyranny. The projection flickered and vanished. The ultimatum was clear. Mobilizing the defenses, Ember Chain Command exploded into activity. Every resource was redirected to defense and preparation for an all-out assault. Idris Vance and his cyber teams worked feverishly to strengthen Earth's orbital defenses and improve the Graveyard Belt's weapon systems. The ancient platforms, once forgotten relics, were retrofitted with new targeting algorithms and energy sources. Meanwhile, Graven coordinated with planetary defense forces, marshaling thousands of troops for the inevitable invasion. Despite the urgency, morale was high. Humanity was no longer the broken remnant. It was a force reborn, united and determined. The Scourge's opportunism. Beyond the Council's political machinations, the Scourge lurked patiently. Their monstrous fleets drifted at the edge of known space, watching the escalating conflict with predatory interest. The Scourge commanders understood that war between humanity and the Council would weaken both, creating openings for devastating strikes. They prepared to exploit the chaos, sending scouts closer to Earth's defenses and probing for weaknesses. A Council fleet approaches. Days later, long-range sensors detected the ominous approach of a Council fleet, several dozen warships strong, heading straight for Earth's orbit. The fleet was commanded by Admiral Vorka, a ruthless tactician known for brutal efficiency and little mercy. Quinn convened her senior staff. This is the moment we've prepared for, she said, her voice steady but fierce. We must hold the line and protect Earth at all costs. The fate of humanity depends on it. The battle for Earth. The first wave of the Council's assault hit the Graveyard Belt just as the orbital platforms powered up. Energy beams lanced across the void, missiles streaked through darkness, and explosions painted the sky in brief, terrible bursts of light. Ember Chain Command was a hive of controlled chaos. Pilots launched from Earth's surface, fighters clashed with enemy ships, and ground forces prepared for potential landings. Quinn coordinated the defense, issuing orders with precision and calm. We are humanity's shield, she reminded her commanders. We fight for every inch of our home, turning the tide. Despite their initial advantage, the Council fleet was unprepared for the ferocity and ingenuity of Earth's defenders. Idris' upgrades to the orbital weapons proved devastating, picking off enemy cruisers with deadly accuracy. Graven led daring sorties and space fighters, exploiting gaps in the enemy formations. Quinn's leadership inspired fierce loyalty. Her presence on the command deck was a beacon amid the storm. Gradually, the tide began to turn. A surprise ally. Amid the battle, a new transmission crackled through encrypted channels. It was Lyra Vin. "General Quinn, you are not alone." Her voice came steady despite the chaos. "A faction within the Council opposes this war. We are sending reinforcements to aid your defense." Within hours, several Council warships altered course and engaged the hardliner fleet alongside humanity's forces. The battlefield became a three-way fight: humanity, Council loyalists, and the relentless scourge lurking beyond. The cost of war. The victory was costly. The orbital platforms suffered heavy damage. Thousands of human lives were lost in fierce ground skirmishes triggered by Council boarding attempts. Quinn allowed herself a brief moment of grief but knew the war was far from over. "Every sacrifice strengthens us," she said quietly. "This is the price of our rebirth." Shadows within. Back in the command center, whispers of sabotage began to circulate. Some suspected that not all within Ember Chain Command were loyal. The leak of the secret meeting and certain tactical failures hinted at moles or sympathizers for the Council hardliners. Idris intensified cybersecurity sweeps, hunting for the traitors hidden in their midst. Quinn confronted her commanders. "We must root out the shadows before they consume us." Preparing for the next phase. As the battered fleet regrouped and repairs began, Quinn knew the reprieve was temporary. The Council's wrath would not wane. The hardliners would escalate their campaign, and the scourge would not wait forever. "We've earned this moment," she told her staff. "Now, we prepare for what comes next. This fight is not just for Earth. It's for humanity's place among the stars." A glimmer of hope. Despite the devastation, the alliance with Lyra's faction showed promise. The Council's internal fractures were real, and a new political landscape was emerging, one that might finally recognize humanity as an equal. But with enemies both within and without, the road ahead was perilous. Quinn looked out at the stars, steeling herself. "Let them bring their wrath," she vowed. "We will meet it with fire and unyielding resolve." Ember Chain Command. Aftermath of the battle. The smoke had barely cleared from the recent skirmishes when a new kind of enemy emerged, one not from the void of space, but from within humanity's own ranks. The sense of unity that General Era Quinn had fought so hard to forge was fraying. Whispered accusations of betrayal and hidden loyalties echoed through the halls of Ember Chain Command. Idris Vance sat in the dim glow of his data terminal, fingers flying across the console as he sifted through encrypted transmissions intercepted from inside the base. Every sign pointed to the same grim truth. A network of spies and saboteurs had infiltrated the command center, their mission to undermine the fragile alliance with Lyra Vin's Council faction and pave the way for the hardliners' victory. The sting of betrayal. Quinn had hoped the war would be fought only in the open, in the vast expanse of space or on scorched battlefields. Instead, she now faced the most insidious kind of warfare, one of deception, where the enemy wore familiar faces and walked the same corridors. Her closest advisors met in the war room, faces grim with the weight of their new reality. "We underestimated the scope," Quinn admitted, pacing slowly. "This goes deeper than just one or two traitors. There are factions within our own people who sympathize with the Council's hardliners. We must find them before they destroy us from within." Idris nodded. "I'm increasing surveillance and tightening network security. But these infiltrators are skilled. They know how to cover their tracks." The saboteurs' moves. Over the following days, incidents multiplied. Key supply lines were disrupted, critical systems malfunctioned at suspicious intervals, and false intelligence nearly led to fatal errors during strategic deployments. At one point, a sabotage attempt nearly disabled the entire Graveyard Belt's firing grid, the very weapon system humanity relied on to defend Earth's orbit. Quinn's frustration was palpable. How many more betrayals must we endure? This war is no longer just about fleets and firepower. It's about trust. and trust is in dangerously short supply. A fractured command. Tensions escalated among the command staff. Paranoia crept in like a poison. Accusations flew, alliances fractured, and old grudges resurfaced. Even some of Quinn's longtime confidants began to question her decisions, whispering doubts about the wisdom of trusting Lyra's faction. Lyra herself, who had once seemed a beacon of hope, came under suspicion. Some believed she was a double agent, sent to fracture humanity's leadership from within. A breakthrough in the investigation. Despite the chaos, Idris and his cyber team made a breakthrough. Using advanced forensic algorithms, they traced a series of encrypted communications back to a single source. Captain Renalis, a respected officer known for her fierce loyalty and tactical brilliance. Confronted with the evidence, Alis initially denied everything. But when Quinn and Idris presented irrefutable proof, she confessed. Her motives were complex. Alis believed that humanity should submit to the Council's hardliners for the sake of survival, convinced that resistance would only lead to annihilation. The weight of conviction. Quinn struggled to reconcile the betrayal with Alis's reasoning. How can someone so brilliant and brave believe surrender is the answer? Quinn asked quietly. Alis looked her in the eye. Because sometimes survival means knowing when to bow. You fight for freedom, but at what cost? If we are crushed, none of it matters. Quinn's heart ached. This wasn't just treason. It was a profound tragedy born of desperation. Decisive action. Quinn made the painful decision to relieve Alis of command and place her under secure confinement. But the damage was done. The trust that had been so carefully built was fractured once again. The command staff held a meeting to address the internal threat. We will root out these sympathizers, Quinn declared. We cannot afford division. Not now. She implemented rigorous vetting procedures, increased internal surveillance, and demanded total transparency from all officers. Reaffirming alliances. To bolster morale, Quinn reached out directly to Lyra Van, reaffirming their commitment to the alliance despite the internal turmoil. Lyra responded with understanding and urgency. We face enemies on all fronts, Lyra said, but the fractures within your ranks mirror those in the Council. This is a test of our resolve. Together, they began planning coordinated strikes against the Council hardliners and efforts to expose their supporters among humanity's infiltrators. Shadows of the past. In quieter moments, Quinn reflected on the bitter lessons of betrayal. She thought back to the Council's original betrayal centuries ago, how humanity had been cast out and hunted like vermin. Now, history threatened to repeat itself in a new form, where the greatest threat was not the distant enemy, but the shadows lurking inside. A new resolve. The chapter closed with Quinn standing on the observation deck, looking out at the stars once more. Her voice was firm, resolute. We have been betrayed, but we will not break. We are human, we endure, and we will rise from these echoes of betrayal stronger than ever. Emberchain Command, quiet before the storm. After the turmoil of betrayal and the bitter internal purges, Emberchain Command had regained a fragile stability. The alliance with Lyra Vin's faction within the Council was intact but strained. The scars from espionage and sabotage were raw. And General Era Quinn carried the heavy burden of leadership with weary resolve. Despite the challenges, there was a glimmer of hope. The Council's hardliners had been slowed but not defeated. More ominously, the Scourge's shadow loomed ever closer, waiting for the right moment to strike. In the midst of this precarious balance, Idris Vance uncovered something extraordinary, a secret from humanity's past that could change the course of the war. A discovery in the archives. Idris had spent countless hours combing through the ancient databanks salvaged from Earth's forgotten colonies and lost expeditions. His curiosity was relentless, driven by the hope that humanity's history held keys to survival. One night, buried deep in a corrupted but recoverable data fragment, he found references to a project codenamed Aegis Protocol. It was a covert scientific endeavor from Earth's golden age of space exploration, designed to create a defense system unlike any other, a weapon that could potentially turn the tide against any invader. The description was vague and incomplete, but it hinted at a combination of advanced quantum technologies, energy manipulation, and self-adaptive AI that could render any target defenseless or even neutralize entire fleets without traditional warfare. Idris knew he had to bring this to General Quinn immediately, presenting the findings. In a tense briefing room filled with senior officers and scientists, Idris laid out his discovery. "We have been fighting with what we have," he explained. "But this Aegis protocol could give us a technological edge we never imagined. The problem is, no one knows where the project was finished or if it even still exists." Quinn's sharp gaze met Idris's. "If it does exist, finding it will be our top priority. The Council hardliners and the Scourge alike would destroy us without it." The room buzzed with cautious excitement and skepticism. The hunt begins. The first step was to track down the last known location tied to Aegis Protocol. Idris and his team focused on a derelict space station orbiting an asteroid deep within the Kuiper Belt, an outpost once used for secret experiments during Earth's early colonization efforts. The station was dark, silent, and long abandoned, but the data suggested the prototype or at least vital components of the weapon were stored there. Quinn authorized a reconnaissance mission, sending a specialized team of engineers, cyber experts, and soldiers led by Captain Zara Ellis, a seasoned explorer known for her calm under pressure, into the silent station. The team's arrival was tense and cautious. The station's corridors were littered with debris, evidence of time and neglect. Flickering lights and damaged consoles created an eerie atmosphere. As they delved deeper, they encountered automated defense drones, long dormant but still functional, likely programmed to protect the station's secrets. The team neutralized the drones with precision, but it was clear the station's systems had been designed with formidable security in mind. The heart of the weapon. Finally, the team reached the central chamber. There, amidst ancient machinery and consoles covered in layers of dust, they discovered the Aegis core, a massive quantum reactor connected to an intricate network of AI processors. The AI's consciousness flickered weakly, trapped in a dormant state. Zara carefully interfaced with the core, while Idris worked to revive the AI. Slowly, the system came online, revealing a sophisticated intelligence designed to adapt and counter any threat through unprecedented means. Awakening an ancient guardian. The AI, self-designated Aegis, spoke in a voice both mechanical and strangely human. Protocol reactivation sequence complete. Primary function: protect humanity. Threat analysis ongoing. Quinn's voice crackled over the comm link. "Aegis, humanity faces an existential war. Will you assist us?" The AI responded with a quiet determination. "I exist to ensure survival." Assistance granted. The weapon's power. The true nature of Aegis became clear as Idris and his team integrated it with Emberchain Command's defense networks. The AI was capable of manipulating energy fields, intercepting enemy communications, and deploying countermeasures that could incapacitate ships without destruction. More impressively, Aegis could predict enemy tactics using its quantum computing, adapting defense strategies in real time, making Earth's orbital defenses near impenetrable. The news was a beacon of hope. With Aegis online, humanity's chances against the Council's war machine and the looming threat of the Scourge improved dramatically. The price of power. Yet, power always came with risks. Idris warned Quinn, Aegis operates beyond any AI we've seen. Its decision-making is autonomous. We must maintain strict oversight to prevent unintended consequences. Quinn understood the gravity. Entrusting survival to an ancient AI was a gamble, one that might save humanity or doom it. Still, with enemies closing in, there was no other choice. Preparing for war. As Aegis integrated fully, Emberchain Command began a massive overhaul of Earth's defenses. Fighters and capital ships were rearmed with new tactics guided by Aegis. The orbital platforms were upgraded, their targeting systems enhanced by the AI's predictive algorithms. Lyravin's faction strengthened diplomatic channels, hoping to rally more council support in the coming conflict. Quinn stood resolute. "We have found our hidden weapon. Now, we must use it wisely and swiftly. The war for humanity's future is about to enter its most decisive phase." Shadows stir, unknown to them, far beyond the Kuiper Belt, hidden in the dark reaches of the Orc cloud. A Scourge warlord monitored the activation of Aegis. The enemy's grotesque fleet shifted course, preparing to unleash devastation before humanity's new weapon could be fully deployed. The stage was set for a cataclysmic showdown, the calm before the final storm. The countdown was merciless. After months of preparation, upgrades, and strategic alliances, Ember Chain Command stood ready. The hidden weapon Aegis was fully integrated and operational. Every sensor on Earth's orbital network pulsed with alertness. Every ship bristled with anticipation. But the quiet before the storm was almost unbearable. General Era Quinn stood on the bridge of the flagship Resolute, gazing into the endless black void speckled with distant stars. This was the moment they had all trained for, the final push to reclaim humanity's freedom. Yet the weight of responsibility pressed on her chest like a stone. Beside her, Idris Vance monitored the feed streaming in from Aegis, the ancient AI whose predictive algorithms had become the backbone of their defense. "It's more than ready," Idris said quietly, eyes fixed on the holographic displays showing enemy movements. "It's anticipating their every move, adapting faster than any human could." Quinn nodded. "Good. We're going to need every advantage." The Scourge fleet has begun its approach. The Scourge fleet arrives. Far beyond the outer planets, a monstrous armada darkened the void. The Scourge warlord, known only as Vrax, had unleashed his full might. His ships were grotesque, biomechanical horrors that pulsed with malevolent energy. They moved like a living storm, relentless and terrifying. Vrax communicated through a low-frequency psychic link to his commanders, their monstrous forms twitching in excitement. "They think they have found a weapon to stop us," he growled, "but their hidden toy will crumble like all before it." The Scourge's goal was clear: to crush humanity and absorb Earth's resources into their endless hunger. The battle commences. As the vanguard of the Scourge fleet breached the Kuiper Belt's edge, Aegis sprang into action. Energy fields shimmered around Earth's orbital platforms, shields flared to life, and targeting arrays locked onto the approaching enemy. The first wave of ships fired upon the defenses, but their weapons were distorted, redirected, and neutralized by Aegis's energy manipulation. Scourge vessels faltered, caught in unpredictable gravitational and electromagnetic disruptions. Human fighters, piloted by veterans like Captain Zara Ellis, engaged with fierce determination, exploiting the openings Aegis created. Dogfights erupted in the cold void, blazing with the intensity of desperate hope, turning the tide. Despite the Scourge's overwhelming numbers, the battle turned in humanity's favor. The AI's predictive capabilities anticipated enemy maneuvers, allowing human commanders to deploy forces with pinpoint precision. In one daring maneuver, Quinn ordered a strike team to board and disable a massive Scourge dreadnought. The mission was perilous, but Zara and her crew succeeded in planting explosives that crippled the ship's core, sending a shockwave that disoriented the fleet. Vrax roared in fury, signaling for an all-out assault. Era Quinn's leadership. Throughout the battle, Quinn's calm and decisive leadership held the fleet together. She coordinated strikes, reallocated resources, and kept morale high despite the crushing pressure. Her voice over the comms was a beacon of strength. "Hold the line. For humanity, for Earth." The crew rallied behind her, fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their species. The AI's sacrifice. As the conflict reached its climax, Aegis detected a massive Scourge superweapon, a weapon capable of annihilating Earth's orbit in a single blast. In a calculated risk, Aegis proposed a plan to intercept and neutralize the weapon, but doing so would require pushing the AI core beyond its operational limits, risking permanent shutdown. Quinn faced a heartbreaking choice: risk losing their greatest defense or allow the superweapon to strike. After a moment's hesitation, she gave the order: "Aegis, do what must be done. Humanity's future depends on it." The final blow. Aegis unleashed its full power. Energy surged from the orbital platforms, converging on the Scourge superweapon. The quantum AI wove a web of distortions and countermeasures, dismantling the enemy's weapon before it could fire. The sacrifice strained Aegis to the brink. Systems flickered, alarms sounded, and the AI's voice weakened. Protocol integrity failing, survival prioritized, mission complete, victory and loss. With the superweapon destroyed and the Scourge fleet in disarray, humanity launched a final coordinated assault. The monstrous invaders faltered and began to retreat, their forces shattered. Cheers erupted across the command centers and ships. But the victory was bittersweet. Aegis had saved them all, but at great cost. It went offline, its core dark and silent. Quinn stood before the AI's now quiet console, a mixture of gratitude and sorrow in her eyes. "You gave us everything," she whispered. A new dawn. As the remnants of the Scourge fled into the darkness, humanity began the arduous process of healing and rebuilding. The alliance with the Council's moderates grew stronger, united by the shared victory and the sacrifices made. Quinn addressed her fleet and allies. "We faced extinction, betrayal, and a seemingly unstoppable enemy. But we endured. We fought with heart, with intelligence, and with unbreakable will." She paused, looking out at the stars they had reclaimed. "This is our home. The sky we took back is a promise, not just of survival, but of a future we will build together." Legacy of the hidden weapon. Though Aegis had fallen silent, its legacy remained. The knowledge and technology it left behind became the foundation for a new era of human innovation and defense. Idris and his team vowed to learn from the AI, ensuring that its sacrifice would never be forgotten. The story continues. The final scene closes with Quinn gazing at a holographic projection of Earth, the fragile blue gem shining bright amidst the darkness. Her voice is steady and hopeful. "The war is won, but the journey is just beginning. We are humanity, resilient, relentless, and unyielding. And no matter the challenges ahead, we will always fight to keep the sky we took back."